Hello friends, thank you for joining me today. I have some quick tips for you on how to use your editable checklists and how to use them if you don't plan to edit them as well. So let me flip this screen around so I can give you those tips. This is your checklist set that you have received, the first page of which are just basic instructions. The second and third page are non-editable. If you were going to use this one, you would just print it out and write on it and check things off as you get them done. This one is more of a hint sheet than it is anything, just a lot of things for you to think about as you get started planning. The fourth and fifth pages are editable. You just click and retype whatever you need to on that. And we're going to go over how to use this one especially. Let's take a close look at one of my STEM challenges. This one is called Building Ramps, and it has pages of teacher directions. I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 pages of those. And we're just going to pretend that you've read through those and you're ready to start planning to do this in your own classroom, keeping in mind your students and their age. The first thing that you would want to take a look at are the materials. Are these things that you have or can gather easily and quickly, or do you need to make any substitutions? If you go back to your editable list, if you're going to use the materials as they are listed in the challenge, then I wouldn't use this at all. I would just just print out that materials list and use it as is. But if you are thinking that there are things on that list that you don't have or want to substitute, you could actually help yourself in planning by just putting those things here. Instead of cardboard, maybe you want to use foam board, so that will help you remember as you're planning for your classroom to get the foam board ready. If there's anything else that you wanted to substitute, that would be what I would put here. I don't believe that I would list all of those other materials that are on the direction sheet because they're already there. It would take too much time for you to copy all of them. If there are any tools in particular that you need for this, this would be a place for you to jot those down. Definitely for this one, since it does use cardboard or even the foam board, you might want to have box cutters on hand, not for your students, but for you to use, or things to make holes, because kids sometimes want to put holes in cardboard and it's difficult for them to do. So a hole puncher or a screwdriver might be something that you would want to have for you to use to help them do those things. The items that are listed at the bottom of this planning worksheet are probably going to stay pretty much the same, but if there's anything there that you want to change for your population of students, then by all means do that. For the particular challenge that I'm showing you, you do need to have a safety plan for that. So it's just something to think ahead about. Moving on to the planning worksheet that has space for you to add some things, the best advice I can give you is to use this one that already has the hints filled in to help you think of everything you can possibly think of that you will need to do and be prepared for this challenge. The first thing that I usually look at are the standards. What standards am I covering with this? We have state standards in my state that are very similar to the national standards for science, but this is something I like to report back to my classroom teachers and my principal. So for this, I would use the editable, and I would go to a source where I can get those standards and find any that apply to this challenge. For the RAMP challenge, the very first one in 3rd grade is about balanced and unbalanced forces. And so I would just highlight that and copy it, and then you can paste it into the box here. And it's that simple. It is too large, however, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to share this with you today. Highlight the words that are too large and just change their size. It's a matter of a few clicks, and now you've got it to fit in that space. It has defaulted to a different font than I like, but you can change the font if you want to. There's my standard, so I know I am covering, and that's the information that I can later send to my principal or to my teachers. For the constraints of the task, if you get a STEM challenge from me, I always have a page in it that lists the constraints, and it's right here. So I would look over those constraints and make sure that these are things that my students can do. If they're too hard, I can always change them. And with my challenges, there's two different ways that you can make those changes. One is to use the editable files. All my challenges come with an editable file that includes the constraints, and you can go in here and change any of that you need to. So you can do that. If you do make some changes, you can make a note of it here if you want to. For ramps, I think probably the only thing that could make it easier would be to give kids more tape. So you might want to do that and remember to do that to help your kids out. For the Ask and Imagine step, and by the way, these are the steps of the engineering design process, and I follow those in everything that I do in STEM. I find it a step-by-step guide to make sure that we are successful. For the Ask and Imagine, the things that I've given you hints about, what is the purpose of this challenge? What's the problem students are solving? Is it a real life problem? They love that. And what do they already know about the topic? And those are the things that set us up to get the challenge started. So for the Ask and Imagine, if you want to put the question here, I make it really easy for you because you can go back to my editable forms that come with every challenge, and you can copy the question, and then you can paste it here if you wanted to. Why would you want to do this? I find that this particular form is something I can actually include with my lesson plans if I turn that into my supervisor. So you may want to do that. For the Imagine step, for you, I would think about what do your students already need to know to make this successful. So the thing that, for ramps, that they're going to need to know Newton's laws of motion. And extra little letter in there. Let's fix that. So those are the things that I need to remember. I need to remember we're making a ramp, we're experimenting, we're going to use a small car, and I need to help my students understand Newton's laws of motion. And by the way, I made that super easy for you in this challenge. I put a whole page in this particular one about Newton's laws of motion right there. So that's a good one for you. Back to here, we're ready to plan. Let's go back to your hint page. What planning procedure will we need to follow? How long will it take? Will students need items to help in their planning? So these are things for you to think about. How will you help this part of it go smoothly? You do need a planning procedure. This is not something I would write here because I think it's a procedure that you would have for every STEM challenge. But what will your students need during that planning time? Do they need samples of supplies? So you may need to remind yourself of that. They do need samples to help with planning. And how long is this going to take? I'm going to say 10 to 15 minutes to do the sketching and the planning that they will do at this time. So that helps me know how much time to allot for a class for this particular challenge. For the Create section, let's go back to the hints. What kind of tools are needed? Do we need extra space? Are there safety rules to follow? What are the jobs the group will need? So most definitely with ramps, there are some safety rules. So I'll just make a note to go over the safety rules. I will make a note to help kids with jobs lists. Sometimes kids have trouble deciding what specific jobs need to happen within a group, and sometimes we'll do that together to help them plan for their creating time. And what kinds of help am I going to need? I'm going to need to help with cutting and hole making. So those are just reminders again for what I need to be looking for when the kids start to build their ramps. Before we start, we go over the safety rules. I help them with their jobs, and then while they're building, I'm going to be racing around with my tools, helping with cutting and making holes. The improving hints. Will they improve as they work, or is there an improving step at the end? Can they get more materials? So if there are more materials involved, then I need access to extra materials. And improving comes at the end for this particular challenge that we're using as an example at the end. That helps me know to have the materials out and ready and they can get them, but it also helps me allot the amount of time that we need. If they're going to stop and rebuild, it takes extra time. So if you note that, then you'll know to give yourself 5 to 10 minutes extra of class to get this challenge finished. For sharing, what is your plan for sharing and how much time will it need? Again, this is just in helping you plan for your STEM challenge. I usually use 5 to 10 minutes for sharing. Depends on what we've built. Sometimes sharing happens as we are building, but for the ramp example that we're using, they do need to share their ramps at the end and show how they work. So this might be another thing to think about. If it doesn't work the first time they share it, do they get a second try? So you could note all of that down there as part of the time that it's going to take. For cleanup, what will happen at the end of class? Do you have a plan for recycling and cleanup? Again, I'm just going to type recycling here because we do that at the end of every challenge. But you might want to make a note here that you need to have an extra space to display the finished challenge results for a week or two so everybody can see them. And that's just another thing for you to prepare for. This planning worksheet is just really to help you with all of those zillion things that happen during class that you need to be prepped for. My products give you all the hints you'll need to get through the challenge, but with your little bit of planning that you can do, it will help your kids get through it really smoothly and make everything fun for you and for them. I hope this works for you in helping you get started, and let me know if there's anything that I can help you with.